Look around your room. Look outside onto the streets. Look at the clothes you are wearing right now. A huge portion of the modern world is powered by products made in China. The clothes are woven in Guangdong. Smartphones are assembled in Shenzhen. Electric vehicles run on massive CATL batteries, crossing steel bridges built by mainland Chinese engineers. Through sheer industrial power and manufacturing scale, China has risen to become the world's second-largest economy, accounting for nearly 17% of global GDP and slowly claiming the crown of the world's factory. But behind the glittering skylines and endless container ports operating day and night lies a truth Beijing rarely wants to discuss. The world is eager to buy Chinese goods, but it still does not want to hold Chinese money. How can a superpower capable of building everything from tiny screws to space stations fail to create a currency the world truly trusts? Beneath the trade wars, semiconductor sanctions, and military power plays, a far more silent and brutal battle is taking place: the battle for control over the bloodstream of the global economy. Why can the United States remain on top of the financial world despite carrying nearly $39 trillion in national debt? Is China simply not powerful enough yet? Or has Beijing trapped itself inside a financial iron cage forged over the past 4 decades? Welcome to today's episode as we explore the struggle behind the Chinese yuan's global ambitions. China currently accounts for roughly 15% of total global trade. Logically, the currency of the world's largest manufacturing powerhouse should dominate international transactions. But reality tells a completely different story. The Chinese yuan represents only around 23% of global foreign exchange reserves, while its share in international payments remains modest compared to the dominance of the US dollar. This is an enormous imbalance between manufacturing power and monetary power. At the height of the British Empire in the 19th century, Britain controlled around 40% of world trade, and the British pound dominated nearly 60% of global payments. After World War II, the United States followed a similar imperial path, using industrial supremacy to anchor the dollar at the center of global finance. China, however, built the greatest factory on earth without building the world's financial safe. And the consequences are enormous. When your currency is not internationalized, your country remains permanently defensive, regardless of how many aircraft carriers or ballistic missiles you possess. Even when African nations borrow from China to build railways, loans are often denominated in US dollars. When China imports the vast quantities of energy needed to fuel its industrial machine, payments are still largely made in dollars. In the end, the country producing goods for the entire world still cannot force the world to speak its financial language. The true power of the US dollar does not come from green pieces of paper. It comes from the degree to which the entire world depends on the financial system controlled by Washington. According to the International Monetary Fund (IMF), the US dollar still accounts for around 58% of global foreign exchange reserves. More than half of the world's reserve assets are still held in dollars. In the foreign exchange market, over 88% of global currency trades involve the US dollar. Oil, shipping, commodity trade, sovereign debt, and international investments continue to operate largely in the language of the dollar. Even the SWIFT payment system, the financial bloodstream of global commerce, still processes roughly 47% of transactions in US dollars, while the Chinese yuan fluctuates around only 45%. This is the power gap Beijing has not yet been able to overcome. Although China now represents nearly 15% of global trade and has become the world's largest exporter, the yuan still accounts for only a tiny fraction of global reserve assets. In other words, the world is willing to buy Chinese products, but not yet willing to place its financial trust in Chinese money. And the biggest problem lies within China's own economic structure. For more than 2 decades, China fueled growth through debt, credit expansion, and an enormous real estate boom. According to multiple international financial institutions, China's total debt, including government, corporate, and household debt, has now surpassed 300% of GDP. At one point, the real estate sector alone represented nearly 2,530 of China's economy. That is why the collapse of giants like Evergrande and Country Garden was never just a corporate crisis. It signaled deep structural cracks in the very growth model that powered China's rise for 40 years. And those cracks are now becoming one of the biggest obstacles preventing the yuan from becoming a true global reserve currency. Of course, Beijing is not standing still while the dollar tightens its grip on the global system. A slow but strategic financial counterattack has already begun. After Russia was cut off from parts of the Western financial system, Moscow increasingly shifted toward China, causing yuan-based trade settlements between the two countries to surge. Brazil has explored direct trade settlements using local currencies. Several Middle Eastern oil producers have also discussed accepting yuan payments for energy exports. China has even developed alternative payment systems like CIPS as a potential backup against Western financial pressure. Many people claim the dollar empire is collapsing and that the era of the yuan has arrived. But reducing dependence on the dollar in a few bilateral transactions is very different from replacing the dollar entirely. The US dollar is not just a currency. It is an entire ecosystem, a vast financial network built over nearly 80 years. It includes thousands of correspondent banks, deep bond markets, global clearing systems, and legal frameworks underpinning international trade. Modern civilization still operates on a financial highway paved by the United States after World War II. China may be building alternative roads through trade and manufacturing power, but convincing the world to abandon the familiar dollar system for a newer and less tested financial route could take decades. Selling 1 billion t-shirts or 1 million electric cars is difficult. But persuading the world to abandon a financial habit embedded deep within the global bloodstream is an entirely different challenge, one capable of reshaping the world order itself.